All right, hey guys, it's Tim Fraticelli here with PTProgress.com. I'm here again with Cam Jadali, and we are talking about residencies, physical therapy school residencies. Cam is an expert in this field. He completed his residency from Emory University and passed the NCS, the board exam for neurologic specialist. Hey Cam, how you doing?
Not too bad, Tim. Just here to answer some questions. Hopefully these young and aspiring colleagues of mine can learn from my successes, but probably more so from my failures.
Sure, no worries. Say, we were talking about residencies and getting into a residency. That's huge. For those who might be applying to schools or the residency programs out there and they get the interview, what can they expect with some of the top questions, maybe a couple questions that you've heard over and over through your residency applications?
Sure. And Tim and I go through this in extensive detail in the residency guide. We talk about these behaviorally based questions. It's never going to be what's your favorite color. It's never going to be something that you can reflexively or automatically answer. It's typically going to be a behavioral based question. Tell me a time when. A very common one that I feel like myself and a lot of students who I've mentored through the residency process have gotten were, tell me a time you've dealt with a very difficult patient. So this could have been from a treatment standpoint, from a cultural standpoint, from a discrepancy with your CI standpoint. So I'll give the example of, tell me a time you were on clinical rotation and dealt with a patient that you felt frustrated or didn't know what to do. How did you resolve this problem? Okay, so they're already asking you about a time that you, in theory, have failed. So that's a really, really common one. A quick little tidbit on how to answer that, or how I would answer that is, having prepped and thought of a very difficult patient case in my head. And when I was going through the interview process, I mentioned how I worked very diligently with my CI to review the literature, problem solve, talk one-on-one with that patient who is extremely complex, and working with my CI and my patient as part of a collaborative team, we're able to give the best possible care. So taking it from a bad situation to much better using my resources. And I think that shows that you're not a know-it-all. I didn't say, oh, I just knew what to do, because no one always knows what to do. And that you ask for help and you utilize your resources, because that's what you're going to have to do during a residency program.
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about really in detail in the guide, how to use stories in your examples and really highlight your strengths. And even if they ask you about your weaknesses, how do you flip that, like you're saying, to show them that you're resourceful, that you're taking action, that sometimes you do make mistakes, but you recognize that. And I think all those things are very useful. In the interview scene, what other question did you hear quite a bit?
Sure. The other major theme, so I'll kind of step away from the behavioral based question. The other one is, what motivated you to apply to our program / what makes you the best applicant or best fit here? This is a really tough one to answer, right? Because you're trying to humbly brag, which is an oxymoron, and you're trying to tiptoe this fine line of, I want to show that I'm great, but I also don't want to come off as showy or that I know everything. And so how I would answer that, and how I answered it during my process, was I just talked about my hunger and my desire to learn more, that I went through a DPT program and was, loved all my neuro classes and was fascinated with it, but I didn't get enough. I was so driven and I was so hungry for their mentorship and their guidance that has driven me to apply to their program, which I held in very high esteem as a top training program, to help them help me become the best that I can be, and the best for our patients. And so I never said anything about, my grades or how I excelled in these classes or how I was the best student. And so I think conveying your enthusiasm, your passion, and your hunger is going to be better than explaining a list of different awards and accolades that you've gotten.
Absolutely. So during the interview, obviously they're going to be handing a bunch of questions over to you. Give us an idea of maybe one or two questions that you can come with prepared to show them that you've taken some time and scoured the resources, but show that you've actually done some homework on your own end instead of coming with a question that can be easily answered on their website.
Sure. I think a really good one is asking them about potential opportunities for growth for their program. I also think asking them a pretty blunt question, like, what do most of your residents have a tough time with? What do they struggle with? Asking them what the cons of their program are. Hopefully you get a pretty sincere and blunt response, because I think that'll tell you a lot about it and, give you some pretty valuable information that they're not going to write on their website.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down to just being aware of the situation too, because when you're in there just talking as an interview, some things are going to come up that might pique your interest. And so being able to communicate clearly and to pick up on those cues can just make it conversational so
Oh
that,
yeah.
because
Oh
here
yeah.
they're just other normal people. They're normal folks that want to make their program the best possible. And you're there to help them do that. Of course, you're there to learn as well, but what can you to contribute and to make that program even better? So, uh,
Absolutely.
Cam, you've done a great job in putting together a lot of this information into this guide, the residency prep guide that we've got on PTProgress. And I would really love for every student watching to take a look at that, because there's this huge amount of research on your end, thousands, hundreds of hours, I'm sure, and then thousands of hours going through the residency itself. And so it distills all of that information down. You can find that at ptprogress.com/residency guide. The link's below. And as always, Cam, thanks for your information. Appreciate you connecting tonight, and we'll chat with you later, buddy.
Thanks, Tim. I wish I would have had all this great info when I was going through it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Absolutely.